This is the introduction to Psalm 90, continued. You just saw a dramatic summary of the import of Psalm 90, but a lot of things weren't explained, of course. And what's going to follow in this and the rest of the videos on this topic explain what's behind the import of the link between Psalm 90 and Isaiah 53. Essentially, Psalm 90 is written with a certain style, and Isaiah keys off the style of Psalm 90 to craft Isaiah 53. Now this matters a great deal because to the modern viewer, Daniel 9 seems to come out of nowhere. It's like all of a sudden we see this reference to a 490-year period. But in fact, that's the main underpinning of Scripture. It's basically God's accounting rules for time. And that accounting for time begins in Genesis 5. And I've spent about 4 or 5 years now documenting it in my mirroring.htm, which you'll see in the sidebar of the video description. And what I've been doing lately is demonstrating how the meter, the Hebrew meter, is used to play a calendar function. It's a doctrine that's being given. It's not Bible codes. The Bible codes people are nuts. It's an actual doctrine. And this doctrine has an origin, and the origin of using the Hebrew meter for time is right here in Psalm 90, because that's what Moses is praying for. The theme of Psalm 90 is right here. You're looking at it in Hebrew. Let me pull it up in English. Wait a minute. Let me pull it up in English. The theme is that for as many days as we are afflicted, that's what you saw in the introductory video, right here. For as many days as we are afflicted, alright, give us glad days. Alright? Make us glad for as many days as you have afflicted us. That's a mirroring. That's restitution. That's doubling. That's reimbursement. God treats time as a balance sheet. And He's doing it in answer to Moses' prayer. Now, He was doing it all along, but Moses prayed for it for Israel, and it's very specifically done for Israel, and that's why the accounting is in the meter. And it's in the meter of this psalm. All right? And specifically, it's right here. Moses is writing in 1400 BC, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner the number 350. I'm going to go through the whole legend of the color coding and everything in a minute. But 350 is the number of years that Moses is forecasting from the time he writes to the time that the human kings begin, because the human king, Messiah, is God becoming human. Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, that's the Shema, a very famous verse in Judaism, Deuteronomy 6:4. That was the whole future, was that Messiah, God, would become a king Messiah too in humanity, and would take on the sins of the world in that humanity and pay so that we could return to God when we died. That was the whole idea. And so Moses is keying off the 350 years future to him after his death, because he's writing in the year he's going to die, 1400 BC. He's saying, okay, next 350 years are going to be an interregnum, as it were, and then the human kings are going to begin. That's running sotto voce in the Hebrew. The words don't say that exactly, but they don't have to, because Moses would have taught that, and everybody knew to use this 350 as a calendar. Now, how do I know that? Because Isaiah is going to use it that way. Isaiah is going to update the calendar. So now, before we get into how all that works, I need to show you how I've color-coded Psalm 90. I've done it in the Hebrew. You'll have to follow along in a translation if you can't read the Hebrew. But at least you can see the metering, whether or not you can read the Hebrew. Okay, the red numbers signify the number of syllables that the Hebrew before the number contains. So there's 12 syllables in this first part of verse 1, the first half of it, which is, a prayer of Moses, man of God. There's 12 syllables, so that's what the red number 12 indicates. Then there's a second set of 12 syllables that talks about God being, our house where we're going to live for all generations. Okay, that's 12 syllables long. Okay, so that the total number in the verse, in that verse alone, is illustrated here in the far left corner, 24. Now, the aggregate number, I'm also keeping a running tally of the total number of syllables, and that's shown up here. Okay, you can see the little box with the factors of the number. Okay, so it's 24, which is 3 times 8. 8 is the factor being used here, as you're going to see. And there's 3 8s. That's real important to know, because Isaiah's going to key off the 8s in Isaiah 53. So then similarly, when we get to verse 2, which is, talking about how, he's God forever and ever and ever, and, he created the universe and all that. That's 12 syllables, okay, going here. That's about the creating of the universe, okay? And then compared to you are God. This right here, you, God, is really what it says, not you are God. There's no verb there. He's shouting, okay? So that's also 12 syllables. So now that verse is also 24 syllables, but the tally now, the running total, is 48. That's 6 8s. Okay, and then we get down to verse 3, and as you can see, it breaks down a little differently. Isaiah's going to key off this a lot, using 7 syllables and 9 syllables to cumulatively total 64 syllables by the end of verse 3, even though verse 3 itself has only 16 syllables. This is genius math. It really is. I'm totally blown away. However, and you see Isaiah do this also, there's like this paragraph concept. Alright, the paragraph has to be divisible by 7. 7 is the number of perfection in the Bible. 8 is the number of God's plan for man. 7 is the number of God's own perfection. And it's appropriate, therefore, that verse 4, which is the days as 1,000 years, that should be divisible by 7 by the time you add up all 4 verses. So 84 syllables by the time you get to the end of verse 4, and 84 is divisible by 7. So what that tells you, see, there's doctrine here. And the Jews had to learn this because they learned the Bible orally. This was to help them remember doctrine. It's not Bible codes.